My name is Paul Wolver. I'm the owner of Pinellas Power Products. This is my extended runtime fuel kit for generators using the 224cc engine made by the Zonson Group. That would include the WEN 4800 and the Power Smart 4500 and possibly some others. For the purpose of this video, we'll be using a WEN 4800 with the electric start to install the kit on, and this will work on the electric start version or the recoil start only. With that, let's go ahead and get started. I would like to say right off that the fit and finish of this little generator is one of the best I've ever seen as far as how the plastic panels match up. It's not one of those generators where you got to go flexing the panels and things like that to try and get it to attach correctly. Everything just flat lines up. So the first thing is you're going to remove this panel. It's held on with 2 screws. Then you'll remove this panel, and it's also held on with 2 screws. And these screws have shoulders on them that are not threaded. We'll just let that hang down. On the top, you just unscrew the gas cap and then pull this little retainer ring off. Then there's a nut with several tabs, and you can unscrew that without any special tools. Then this cover is held on by 4 more of the small screws with the shoulders on them. And they're exactly identical to the 2 screws that held this front cover on. Then we'll pull the front cover off. And it's held on by 6 more of the exact same screws, which I like because then there's no confusion as to which screw went where. To press this button and pull the handle out just a little bit, then you can slide the front cover out of the way. And it doesn't have to come all the way off. This is far enough right here. A couple of things I'd like to point out that I really like about this little generator is that it was so well thought out from the very beginning. The fuel tank vent hose has a little area recessed into the tank where the hose goes, and it's not just a recessed area. There is a cleat right here that holds that hose in. You can pop it out like this or snap it into place. The same way with the fuel tank vent lines, the crankcase breather, and so on. There's places in the case that it snaps into place or unsnaps. It was so well thought out. There's a place for everything, and everything is in its place. Okay, so now you have the fuel selector valve down here at the bottom. Running to the fuel selector valve, there are going to be 2 hoses. This one here, I don't know if this is washing out the color on the camera, if it's helping or hurting. Okay, that's definitely not helping. You need just a little bit of light. Let me try it this way. Okay, that looks better. Okay, this hose runs from the tank to the fuel selector valve. Then there's another hose that runs to the fuel selector valve, and it's right up here in the front, right behind this area, and it's held in place too. When you go to put it back in, make sure it lines up behind this area right here that's raised. Do not try to put it all the way forward, it won't fit there. But this little raised area is a groove for the fuel line to slide into. If you look on this slot on the side where the tab goes in, you look right behind it and the fuel pump or the fuel line passes by there. What we're going to do is we're going to cut the fuel line right at that location. So I'm going to reach in there and I'm going to grab the fuel line at that location and unsnap it. From that little groove that it goes into, and I'm going to reach in and I'm going to cut the fuel line. Make sure that the fuel selector valve's in the off position when you go to do this, otherwise you'll have fuel dripping out on you. So here are the two halves of the fuel hose. Included in my kit is a 3/16 T-fitting, in a section of 1/4 inch hose and a section of 3/16 hose. So take the section of 3/16 hose and we're going to put this section of hose onto this tab on the T-fitting. We get just a little bit of oil to make putting this together just a little bit easier. In the kit, there are two different sizes of hose clamps. You'll take one of the smaller hose clamps, put it onto this, and go ahead and squeeze it down. Just another drop of oil. Now make sure when you put the 3/16 T-fitting into this hose that you make sure that the hose went all the way on too, because you'll see there is a strain relief or protective sleeve around the hose, and you want to make sure that the hose itself butted all the way up. You see that the hose itself is all the way onto the T-fitting. Then take one of the smaller hose clamps, and crimp it down tight. You'll notice the orientation of the hose clamps. The one that I put on with the heavier hose that's installed in my kit, the clamping portion faces this way. The two from the original factory hoses are going to face forward at an angle because there's not enough room to face them completely sideways, and we want it tight against this runner. Then you'll take a third small hose clamp from the kit, a little bit more oil on there. And the last section of hose, which goes to the fuel selector valve, we'll take a pair of needle nose pliers. It'll make it just a little bit easier to hold on to the hose and slide it up on. You'll probably be able to see it better in the video once I get out of the way. Okay, can you see it here, or is it easier to see through that gap?
That's fine.
Okay. And now I'm going to put another hose clamp onto the third hose, and we'll squeeze it down. As I said earlier, this generator uses a 224 cc engine, which makes it fairly tight in here. And that's another good thing about this generator. There are other brands with supposed 4,000 watts in a suitcase-sized generator, and they're using between 135 and 149 cc engine, and they're trying to give you 4,000 watts of power. This particular generator uses a 224 cc engine, so it actually does produce good power, unlike some of the really small ones that there's just no way are going to produce rated power. So now you'll go ahead and feel the groove that that hose came out of and snap it back into place. And it snaps right into those retainers in the original stock position. Now you'll see the bracket that the fuel selector valve is held into, and there's a web right here. What we're going to do is drill a 3/16 hole right through here so we can run a zip tie to clamp this hose into place so it sits nice and tight, kind of following along with the trend that they did on the other stuff, that a place for everything and everything in its place. And what I'll do is take one of the zip ties that's included in the kit, run it through that hole down here that we just drilled, and zip tie this hose in place. And this is because when you put this cover back on like this, the recoil start rope is going to be running right through here. And with this zip tied in this location, once you snap this cover on, you'll be able to feel it, and there's about a 3/4 of an inch gap between the hose and the recoil start rope, so there's no chance of the recoil start rope sawing through the hose when it's being held into this position. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is, if you look at the front of the generator, there's this area that's boxed in with a circular shape and two lines running through it. I don't know which way it's easier to see. Everything's black, so it's kind of hard to spot details.
That's fine.
Okay. We're going to go a little bit off center to this side, and that's where our fuel inlet port is going to be mounted. And our fuel inlet port is a quick disconnect Yamaha style fitting, and a hose barb that will be screwed on from the back side. And when it's screwed all the way down tight, it'll create a pinch point between the two. So it will clamp onto this plastic housing. As I said earlier, we're going to go just a little bit off center, about a quarter of an inch off centered, as far as left, right, and dead centered as far as top to bottom. Okay, that's as far as I want to go with the step drill. I'll take the rest of it out with a repairman's reamer because I don't want to go oversize. And when you're drilling with a step drill, it's very easy to overshoot your mark. There we go. Okay. So you will take the Teflon tape that's included in the kit. You'll wrap it around the threads. Fortunately, it is a full roll of tape, so if you make a mistake like that, you've still got plenty of tape left. Okay, so you'll wrap it around the threads. Be very careful not to overlap the end like that, because when you screw the hose barb on, it'll shear off that piece of tape. Fortunately, that piece of tape will get caught in the fuel filter, but we just don't want any more debris in the fuel filter if we can easily avoid it. Okay. Also included in the kit is a 1/2 inch washer. When you go to push the fuel fitting through this hole, you'll put the washer on from the back side. And what that's going to do is this plastic is so thin that when the fuel fitting and the hose barb crimp down on each other, the plastic is so thin that it won't actually bind and bite into it without just a little bit more thickness of material. So that's what the 1/2 inch washer. Incidentally, it is actually easier to install the washer on the outside, but I like the look of it without the washer visible. We'll tighten this down and then we'll pull off the section of tape. Truth be known, it doesn't have to be exactly horizontal, but I want it to be horizontal just for aesthetic reasons. It just looks nicer. Okay. Then we're going to take the section of 1/4 inch hose that was included in the kit, and we're going to slide it just above this metal box that's below the fuel selector valve. It'll pass above that metal box and slide right onto the back of this hose barb up here. And here's your hose. Just take just a little bit more of that oil. And I've slid it onto the hose barb that we screwed onto the back of the fuel fitting. And now, included in the kit are also some large hose clamps, and they go on the 1/4-inch hose as opposed to the small ones that went on the 3/16 hose. Okay, and the hose clamp is nicely in place. Look down at the bottom and make sure that you're not going to snag on any of the wiring harnesses or anything like that. And that's underneath where this hose passes. Now we're going to gently lift the front cover up and slide it into place. I just want to make sure that everything is nicely in place there. Okay. Now we'll put the screws back into the front cover. Remember, there were 6 screws that held the front cover on. And you can just gently take your hand and squeeze the cover into place so that you can get the screws into the respective threads. And as I said earlier, the fit and finish on this generator is so good that if it doesn't fit perfectly, pull it back off and make sure that you don't have a wire or a hose or something in the way. This is not like a lot of the other generators where it just doesn't fit right, and it never did. This particular one made by the Zonson group, the fit and finish is just, I'm really impressed with it. Okay, so now you're going to take the 1/4-inch hose, route the 1/4-inch hose along the bottom of the generator. And what we're going to do, we're going to run it along the bottom of the generator, and right here we're going to cut the hose and put in a fuel filter. And that way, anytime you open up this side cover to check the oil level, check the air filter and so on, you can also look down and you can check the fuel filter to make sure it's not clogged. The fuel filter is a real simple inline fuel filter. The arrows point in the direction of fuel flow. What I would recommend doing is rotate the label with my logo on it away from you so that you can clearly see the fuel filter itself and make sure that fuel is flowing through it, just for inspection purposes. You'll notice that there's a recessed area right here. You want the filter to lie right in this recessed area, right here, where there's the most room. In order to do that, we need to cut it to where the hose that goes to the fuel fitting slides onto this end, so it'll have to be cut back here so that this can slide in and get into the correct position. So I'm going to reach in there with my hand and kind of mark it. Okay. I'm going to put this piece of hose on now because it's just a lot easier. Incidentally, when you're putting the hose clamps on, and I'll put this one crooked just to show you, if they go on crooked like that, go on with the pliers and squeeze side to side and they'll straighten up. And that's what I was doing on this one with the pair of needle nose pliers, reaching in there to straighten it up. So now we'll take a little bit more oil, put it on this end, and slide it in to this hose and put a clamp on it. Incidentally, the two clear hoses are the float bowl drain and float bowl vent. The float bowl vent, you can barely feel it poking through on this particular generator. There's really not a long enough hose to poke through any further, but that gets it. If you do knock those hoses out, be sure to put them back so that it drains any fuel outside of the compartment. Push that hose clamp on, or push that hose on the rest of the way before I put a clamp on it. Okay. So we're putting another hose clamp, and this will be a 1/4 inch hose, so it'll be the larger clamp on this side of the filter. Generator is a tight fit in here. There's no question about that. If you can see this on camera, but you know what I'm trying to do, so once I'm done, I'll show you. Would really help if this generator weren't completely black inside the housing. And we could see a lot better. Just trying to get that hose clamp down just a little tighter. Okay, now if you look down there, you can see that there's a white hose clamp at each side of the filter, and the viewing window of the filter is facing up. It would be nice to look at my advertising logo on the filter, but it's probably more important to be able to see that the filter is clean. Now we're just going to make sure that when I was working on it, I pushed this hose out of the place. Okay, so now I can feel it coming out of this spot right here in the housing. Okay, so now what we're going to do is take the 1/4-inch hose and move it up into a gentle arc and decide where to cut it. We're going to use the 3/16 to 1/4 adapter, and I'm going to go ahead and put as much 3/16 hose as possible and shorten the 1/4-inch side so that the hose will run up and around in a loop of the 3/16. Okay. Test fit first. Okay, that all looks nice. So we'll take one more small hose clamp, one large hose clamp, put the large hose clamp on the 1/4-inch hose, the small hose clamp on the 3/16 hose. Squeeze them down. I'm going to tuck that in right there. You'll notice, like I said earlier, everything, including the choke cable, has got retainers molded in the case of the generator. It's like they really were diligent to make sure that everything just fit nice. Take another one of the zip ties included in the kit. Okay, so now when you look at it, everything should be nice and smooth flowing, no pinched hoses, no obstructions anywhere. And all the hoses that are factory are back in their original location. So then we'll go ahead and slide the recoil start method, or recoil start rope and panel back into place. When you slide it into place, you'll take your finger and you'll run it along the top of this hose and just make sure that you can feel that the recoil start rope is not hitting the hose. We got about a 3/4 inch clearance on that. Okay, so now we're going to put these two screws back in place. Like I said, if everything doesn't absolutely fit perfect, it means you're putting something together wrong, because they really did a great job on this generator for their fit and finish. So we'll take the retainer nut now. Screw that down. Then we'll put the 4 screws that hold the panel in place. Take the last panel, take one more peek in there, make sure everything is in the place that it should be. Snap the 2 push connectors in, screw the screws in from the top. The next thing is the kit includes a quick disconnect fitting for the fuel tank end as well, and a Yamaha fuel hose with quick disconnect connectors. Make sure that you observe the arrow. It points in direction of the fuel flow, and I'm going to go over that in the product demo video that shows you how to use it. Also included in the kit is a decal with instructions on how to operate it. If you're running off of the stock tank, you totally operate it by the owner's manual, the same way you did before you put my kit on it. My kit does not interfere with the stock operation in any way, shape, or form. Real simply, and like I say, I'll cover this in the demo video, but in order to run it stock, you have the fuel selector valve in the run position, and in order to run it off of my kit, you'll move the fuel selector valve in the fuel off position, which means the fuel from the stock tank is not getting to the generator. It is pulling fuel from the remote tank. And then of course here's the engine off where it also kills the spark. You'll have plenty of extra zip ties for tidying up the area, or if you decide to move one or cut one or something like that. Last but not least, the kit will include a copy of this video on a flash drive / bottle opener included in the kit. That way, if you don't have internet access where you're installing it, you plug this into your laptop computer. That just about covers it, and I thank you so much for your time.